Rolling Tin Fist.
Hey man, how you doing? Hope you're handling your business, going your own way. I wanted to talk about a topic I've put off for a while, and that is the institutionalization of men, or otherwise known as I need permission. A few months ago, a colleague of mine and myself were invited to a company outing, an impromptu company outing, because one of our coworkers from an office overseas was visiting and we wanted to take her out. Take him out rather. And so I said I was going. Instantly, without hesitation, I said I was going. And so my colleague looks at me and he says, "You don't need permission. You don't have to. You're not asking for permission." And I looked at him. I said, "Hell no." And he seemed confused. I said, "Look, I simply called my wife and let her know. Yep, we had a company outing. I'm gonna have dinner. Don't worry about me. Square the kids away." And he was blown away. And he started to tell me he doesn't know. Well, she's been working all day and she'll have to deal with putting our son to bed. And I said, "Well, you've been working all day. Matter of fact, last I checked, you've worked a 10-hour shift. And how often do you go out?" I asked him. How often? I mean, I knew the answer to the question was next to never. And so I told him, so one time out of this whole year, you're going out. Just call and say, "Hey, I'm heading out." Ask if she can, take care of business and then be done with it. And he looked at me and I nodded and he did just that. And the feeling of liberation, at least for the time being, was just astounding. Now, before you think of me as the hero of the story, before I took the red pill, I was very much like him. Even if I did go out, and I did go out, I would always feel guilty for no reason. And the red pill really opened my eyes into this institutionalization of men, where you get so used, particularly when you're married, that's the institution, to being a utility. You're bringing home the bacon, you're paying the mortgage, you're mowing the lawn, you're taking out the trash, you're taking the cars to the mechanics, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing home reservations. These things are all designed to keep you in check, to keep you locked down, to keep you busy so you don't get the idea in your head that there are other things outside of this institution that are of interest to you as a man and building you up. And you do this long enough, it doesn't occur to you that there's anything else. You do this enough, and you're so used to getting your reward, if you're lucky, in sex, that you actually think in your mind of it as a virtuous cycle. But it becomes your prison to the point that if you do get that freedom somehow, let's say you get divorced or for some reason your wife says, "Hey, why don't you go out with your friends?" You have a lot of men, and I know these men personally, that don't know what to do. They panic. They've got no one because they've been institutionalized so long. A great example of this is the movie The Shawshank Redemption. There's a character in the movie called Brooks, and he's an older guy, and he's been in prison longer than everybody. And so he finally gets paroled. And he gets out there, and he's traumatized. He's fearful. He's been so used to being told when to wake up, when to go to bed, when to eat, when to shit, that when he gets out there with all this freedom, he doesn't know what to do with it. He can't cope with having no choices, having no restrictions. He's even asking his boss at his job if he can go to the bathroom, and the boss is like, you don't have to ask to go to the bathroom. Eventually, it becomes so much of it for him, he commits suicide. So that's the danger of not going your own way as a man, particularly as a young man. And unfortunately, it's something that as a young man who hasn't been married, who hasn't had the experience of being institutionalized, you won't know the full cost until you have been institutionalized. Just like people who first go to prison for a long stretch don't really get it until they're in there doing that long stretch. So, especially for you young men out there, if you get nothing else from this video, understand that personal freedom is the ultimate prize of going your own way. The ability to come and go as you please. Personal freedom. Stardust has a great video on this, and I'll put a link to it in the description. He goes into that into some more depth. But as a married man, I can tell you point blank, personal freedom cannot be overstated. So, if you do decide to cohabitate, if you do decide to enter a long relationship, if you do decide to get married and have children, you are, in fact, giving up some of your personal freedom. But that's not really the big sacrifice. The big sacrifice is being in that relationship so long that you forget what freedom is. You become institutionalized. Dum, 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 dum.